for me, I always think it's simple when you have someone writing a scene or a movie and already you know about the emotions, about the atmosphere in a scene, about the actors, what they want to do or can't do. It's whatever their motivation is. So the inspiration is there. I don't have to think of the basic inspiration or the theme for a music.
Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. I'm your host, Jody Krangle, and this podcast will discuss just how sound influences our behavior. I generally talk about this in the context of advertising and marketing, but there are other places this is important too. I really feel that it plays a much more important role in our lives than maybe we realize. So let's delve a little deeper. This is the second part of my interview with Chris Wirsig. Speaking of sound design, have you noticed any differences between, now you're in LA now, right? So you're in North America,
Yes.
And you did spend lots of time in Europe, I'm assuming. So you've seen the differences in music types between the different places?
To a certain extent, especially, say, in electronic music, it developed a little differently. And there were also, when it started in the late 60s, early 70s, the musicians there, they had different instruments. There were synthesizer developers in America, like Bob Moog started out, and then there were developers in Europe, even in the East, like Russia had its own synthesizers, often copies of Western synthesizers, but with their own distinct sound. And if you compare, even in Europe, if you compare German electronic bands like Kraftwerk or Tangerine Dream, and French artists like Jean-Michel Jarre, the sound is already very different. And I'm actually just writing for another library an album that sounds very much like Jean-Michel Jarre because he's a great hero of mine.
Yeah.
And he used different synthesizers. Like there was one in the early 80s called the PPG Wave. Tangerine Dream used that a lot. I've never seen that in any studio photo or live setup photo of Jean-Michel Jarre. And it's a different sound that you hear, and that's how the bands sound differently. But in the end, I think it's all, the chords are the same. It's and it depends if you write more darker or more uplifting music with it. But the theory behind it is the same for all of them.
Yeah. Where do you see this going in the future? Because I have to imagine that movie making is changing right as we speak.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So what goes into making a music track for a movie nowadays that may have changed for you in the past? Like, what are you doing now that's different from the way that you used to do it?
For me personally, it hasn't changed that much because I'm usually here alone in my studio and working on the computer and with the different instruments. For bigger productions, when they use an orchestra or so, it definitely has changed. I've seen that for the new Dune movie, Hans Zimmer recorded this big, 50, 60 person choir, but they obviously couldn't be in one room together. So they did it in little bits with 5 people or so at one time, with screens in between them so they're safe, and recorded that bit by bit, the whole choir. So these are things that are changing. Same with string players have it a little easier. They can wear masks and be apart, but still it's in a big room, and that's there's the danger that still something spreads in there. Horn players, trumpet players, all that don't have it that easy. Singers surely not. They can sing with a mask into a microphone.
No, yeah, that's really tough.
That definitely has changed. To what extent it will remain changed when someday the pandemic is kind of over or whatever outcome will come. I'm not sure. For smaller budget indie movies, I guess it will stay that way. I just recorded a benefit single of a cover version, orchestral rock cover version of Depeche Mode's "People Are People."
Okay, yeah.
And there are 36 musicians and singers involved. Everyone recorded at home. I just sent them the first kind of mock-up playback, and they recorded to that. And no one knew what the other was singing. I mean, the words and melody, obviously, but how and how they're phrasing it. Same with the musicians, but it somehow fell together. Had a few minor edits here and there. So it can work, and with experienced session players and singers, it shouldn't be too big a problem to record like that.
Yeah, so everyone's just doing it at home and just sending it in to one person who's mixing it all together. Yeah. I hadn't heard about the 5x5 choir there. That was, wow, that's quite something. I mean, and it's a big production too, so you imagine it takes a long time.
I don't know how big the orchestra was, but probably at least 50, 60 players, I guess.
That's incredible. So. But I guess nothing is impossible, right?
No, and it's with new technology that came up in the last 10 years for online collaboration. You only have, I have a plugin in the computer now for Cubase, and the same plugin goes for Logic and Pro Tools as well. And it just connects you to another system somewhere else. You just have to be online and have a more or less stable connection.
Yeah.
And then you can record remote what that one is playing into his computer, and you get it out in high quality.
Are you finding that there's a bit of a lag when you do that, or does it depend on how far away you are? Or because I know Zoom doesn't.
A little lag.
Yeah, I know Zoom doesn't work very well for that. It can, but
That's
after
right,
the fact.
No, there is a little lag, but it's usually not too much. So for the recording, it doesn't matter that much, and you might have to just put it up front a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it's because the timing in the song is still good, so it's just a little behind.
Yeah, so you just need to like move the track.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah.
Exactly.
Just a tiny bit. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a pretty big change from what has been possible in the future. I mean, I did an album with my friend Chris Conway in the UK, and we did that in 2015. And we were sending him like wave files back and forth. And basically he would just send me a backing track. I'd sing to it, send him back what he needed. And I think 2015 was really about the time that kind of technology became accessible to everyone, as opposed to just the elite players. You know what I mean? Like, I think it had happened, but it was harder for everyday people to get involved in that.
Totally, yeah. I remember when, like 10, 15 years ago already, companies like Steinberg and back then Imagic with Logic, they were experimenting with the whole online collaboration thing. I never really used it at that time, and it had still its like little quirks and errors in there. But definitely nowadays, it's so the development has been so rapidly, and that's a good thing for the situation we're in now.
Oh, totally, yeah, and it's sped up. I mean, I would imagine that people are needing to do what they need to do quicker than ever before, and you know, we need this connection. There's no other way to do it right now.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. What would make, I'm curious because, you know, knowing what you do, what would make your job easier as far as technology is concerned? Like what are you waiting to have happen for what you do? What could improve?
I can't really say. From the top of my head, I'm actually pretty happy with what we have right now.
Okay.
I guess remote recording definitely has still a little way to go.
Yeah.
That it's without lagging. Not sure if that technologically is even possible.
Well, maybe not with Zoom.
No,
we don't
probably
know.
not.
Maybe they'll, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Zoom will come up with
Can all
something.
get better.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I mean, with all the plugins we have nowadays, there's most instruments in the world are at my fingertips, just on my keyboard here with the computer, which is amazing. And starting from the 90s, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
There was, if it was an Asian flute or whatever, or some Arabic instrument, it usually sounded a bit electronic still.
Yeah.
Or strings. Pianos was pretty early. So definitely the sound quality and the multitude of sounds and instruments you can have, even just in your computer, is amazing.
Yeah, so the sampling has definitely gotten better over the years. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that makes sense. Do you have particular instruments that you like using in your productions?
Cello is definitely an instrument
That's a
I
big one.
use in most scores or
Well, it has
songs.
that deep, dark sound, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And you can use it. It can be very sad. It can be very menacing, intense. Just like with productions for like singer-songwriters who have their acoustic guitar and their voice, I love to add a cello to it, especially if it's more on the melancholy side, the song, and just have long strokes on the cello to add to the melody, or even add a counter melody that then lifts the song into a little something different.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So it's basically the bass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. Are you looking for ways to improve your company's or podcast's impact? You'd be surprised how powerful the use of an intentional audio branding strategy can be. Want to know more? I have a free downloadable PDF that gives you my 5 tips for implementing an intentional audio strategy at voiceoversandvocals.com/audio-branding-strategy. That location does ask to put you on a mailing list, just to send you updates on when the new podcasts come out. But if you really don't want to give your email out, I understand. Just contact me directly. My email is all over my website, and I'll make sure you get that PDF without needing to sign up anywhere. If you do sign up, though, you also get access to a resources section called The Studio, where I have videos, white papers, and PDFs, discounts from my guests, and snippets of audio from my guests that no one else gets to hear. So maybe it's worth your while. Totally up to you. And of course, if you're looking for voiceovers, you can get in touch with me about that too. Now, back to the podcast. So what are you working on right now? What's on the agenda?
Right now,
Yeah.
it's the Jean-Michel Jarre album for a library, which is a labor of love.
Sure.
as one of my musical heroes.
Yeah.
And delving into creating these old synth sounds sometimes can take a little while to get it right, but that's definitely a fun project. I'm also working on, and don't laugh, a comedy series.
Oh my
which
goodness.
is also
That's
new
different.
for me.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
Lots of major
it's,
chords in there.
Kind of. They actually, the good thing is they want a little weirder, darker
Okay.
sound to it.
Okay.
So that's why I also said, yeah, I'll try it.
That fits into your wheelhouse, sure.
Yeah. And from the same producer, another also more comedy, but I noticed that it is fun to write because that one, they jump from a Star Trek themed thing into, there's also a weird white hip hop dude
Okay.
who wants to be the very tough hip hop guy, but he isn't, of course. So changing from a Star Trek themed epic song from one at a cut into the hip hop thingy that actually is fun to do, and I start to feel that comedy might be a cool thing to write for.
Maybe.
Even if it's especially if the music doesn't have to be typical comedy music.
Yes.
That's probably I don't have real experience in that, but If it's like a science fiction score, and then you go into a hip hop track, and you just make it blend together so it fits.
Yeah, it sounds challenging, but very rewarding.
It's challenging, but these are the challenges I like. I always loved combining instruments that might not fit together, especially if it's electronic and acoustic instruments, and making that into something new and something maybe with some sounds that you haven't heard yet.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm curious if you have any advice for people who want to get into writing music for directories or for film. Is there a particular place that they can find more information? Is there like a process that you go through? I guess making a demo of some of the things you've done. I don't know who you reach out to. I'm just curious if you have advice for people who are starting to get into this.
Yes, I do. A good resource is the Production Music Association, PMA. Their website is pmamusic.com. And they're the organization for music libraries, publishers, and for composers in the production music field. Going into that, going into movies directly can be a bit hard, and I've saw that myself.
Yeah,
there are a lot of composers out there, and a lot of people that want to write for films, be it little indie films. It's definitely easier to get into indie films, and that's not always necessarily paying, but it can be a good credit. And like some of the short movies I did went to film festivals and got awards, like 10, 12 awards per movie, and that helps you build your own reputation as a composer, definitely.
Yeah.
And as we all have to pay bills as well, production music is definitely an area where music is always needed. It's mostly for TV shows, a lot of reality shows that we might not even watch.
Yeah.
But is still our placements for you and are at least a few dollars coming in. It can take a while though. So that's a word of caution. If music is placed in a TV show, it can take a year or longer until you see some money coming in, even if it's already broadcast a year ago, because the whole process from the studio, the network, then to the PROs, ASCAP or BMI, and to you, that takes a while.
Yeah.
Especially then from overseas, from other countries. Domestic can be a bit quicker. And yeah, demos, as you mentioned, demos definitely should be mastered productions, because you're competing with composers, and everyone has the mastered, finished product that they send to libraries. So if you have something very special and feel you want someone to hear the demo already, just to get some opinion, it might be okay. But then again, especially in the library business, probably you won't get a lot of answers because people just don't have the time, unfortunately. So don't be discouraged from that. But best is always to have a finished production.
So that the people who are thinking of putting this into their production don't have to use too much imagination? Is that really what?
That as well, yes.
Yes.
I've once... through a producer friend asked me if I can write for a certain library, and he wanted me to not just send a few music examples in. He wanted me to cut them to existing trailers of some action movies. So, and I mean, there's no sound effects then in the trailer, and no dialogue, obviously, because my music's over it. But I did that, and he said he wants to send them this way with a video so they can see that it works with picture.
I see. Yeah.
So it's definitely sometimes better. The nice thing when you start out with little indie movies or short movies, you can also make a little video reel. from scenes from the movies you scored to have a little composer reel that people can see how it works to scenes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It sounds like just getting noticed is as much big business as being involved.
It somehow is, yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
Wow.
And they always say that that the connections are important and networking. I mean, at the moment, networking is at a low, obviously.
Yeah.
But when we come back to that, it's find the people that you somehow click with and that you definitely want to work with, and then it can take sometimes years until someone, a director you already know for years, then all of a sudden asks you, "Won't you write music for this new movie I do now?" It takes a while. Everyone knows people, and they need to see that you're reliable and that you keep at it, and that they somehow can easily work with you.
Yeah, that kind of sounds a lot like the entire movie business.
It does.
Yeah, pretty much. Even for voiceover.
I bet it's the same with voiceover, yeah.
Very similar, yeah. So I want to be very respectful of your time, and I so appreciate your talking with me today. How will people find out more information about you and your directory? Do you have URLs you could share?
I do have websites, yes. My personal composer website and producer website is chriswirsig.com. And the music library is on counter-communications.com.
Okay. Wonderful.
Can also be reached without dash in the URL.
Okay, you have both. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And I wish you every success with your composing, because it sounds like you're well on your way.
We can hope.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available on all the usual outlets. Until next time.